Next speaker is Sabina Shugg. And Sabina Shugg is a mining engineer who has held management positions within the resources sector as well as working as a consultant. She is the manager mining for the Perth-based business consulting firm Momentum Partners. She founded the very active Women in Mining WA network, which has 1,000 members across Western Australia. And her speech titled on Planning for a Sustainable Workforce Through Diversity Initiatives.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank the organisers for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Women in Mining Network, to share some ideas that you might like to take to your own work environment. The Women in Mining Networking Group is a network that is run under the umbrella of the AusIMM and welcomes members from throughout the mining industry. Our vision is to work in a minerals resource industry where all participants are treated fairly and equitably, and which is admired for its people and its leadership. WIMNet has a broad reach and we are involved in many things. However, I've narrowed down the discussion today to just a couple of pertinent topics. First, let's look at some context. Then we'll look at the purpose of the 2008 AusIMM Work Practices and Equity Survey. This includes a couple of key areas, being issues affecting women, issues affecting people, that is men and women, with caring responsibilities. Finally, I will tell you a little bit more about WIMNet. Women are underrepresented in the mining industry. The numbers are pretty simple. Women make up 45% of the general workforce, but only 3% of site-based mining workforce and 18% of the professional mining workforce. This is backed up by the percentage of female delegates at this conference, although this isn't totally accurate, as there are a couple of names that weren't terribly gender specific. From the AusIMM remuneration, I was very careful to pronounce that right after Peter's crack at West Australians not pronouncing things correctly. Remuneration and Employment Survey, it can be seen that there's a gender pay gap in the mining industry and it's getting worse. This is based on the responses of nearly 2,000 AusIMM members. There's an escalating gender pay gap across the different levels of responsibility, with level 1 being a graduate and level 5 being senior management. A quick comparison between 2007 and 2008 results. The female graduate gender pay gap increased by 10% in 2008, and there's an even bigger increase at level 5, where it increased by 12 percentage points to 32%. Although most people have probably been focused on, things like Mitch has been talking about, the current economic situation, there's been a glut of media about that. There's also been quite a bit of press that some of you might have noticed about women in leadership, i.e. the lack of women in senior positions, and in fact the numbers of women in executive positions in the ASX 200 has decreased. There's also been other talk in the media about the gender pay gap. Okay, so for a few years the AusIMM has carried out a work practices and equity survey. In 2007, WIMNet requested that this survey data also be analysed by gender. Of particular interest was gaining a better understanding of how to address the barriers to equitable participation. Specific areas of interest are key drivers of the gender pay gap, effectiveness of diversity policy and impacts of workplace culture, impact of caring responsibilities on work, and effectiveness of government support policy. As previously mentioned, I'll only cover some of the results of this survey. There are three main groups of barriers to equitable participation coming out of the Work Practices and Equity Survey. Firstly, key barriers affecting women, regardless of their caring responsibilities. This includes a tendency for people to employ people like me, i.e. men employing men, low visibility of female role models and poor access to mentors, a lack of networking opportunities, other issues relating to assertiveness and confidence, and finally, other cultural issues and discrimination and harassment a grab bag rather too large for this discussion. The second group of barriers is those that affect people of either gender with caring responsibilities. Some of these issues are structural issues due to fly in and out and organisational costs. Corporate policies that aren't supportive of flexible work arrangements. Line managers or peers that aren't supportive of employees accessing flexible working arrangements. Lack of on-ramps for primary carers of newborns, and the role of fathers being devalued by peers, and finally childcare issues. Okay, now to the key issues affecting women. Rather than just talking about barriers, let's talk about solutions for each and every one of us to try and use to overcome key issues affecting women. Things that we can do include increasing the visibility of role models by way of company newsletters, media, AusIMM, etc. Facilitate mentoring. Sometimes people just need a bit of encouragement. Provide support for women-led activities, attendance, sponsorship and speaking. Ensure professional development is targeted effectively. Diversify networking activities in your organisation to be more inclusive, not just golf days. Undertake, I'm just using that as an example, undertake reporting and action on gender pay gap in your organisation. It needs to be transparent, and it's so often not. Meaningful diversity training, fact-based culture change. Don't leave it to chance. You report, measure and manage. Now to key issues affecting people with caring responsibilities. Who has caring responsibilities? Nearly 30% of respondents are carers for someone. Of those that care for someone, 90% look after a child and 7% after an elderly person. This data is just about the ones looking after children. From this data, it can be seen that caring impacts many careers, and in particular women's careers. Interestingly, caring costs are almost equally a disincentive to females and males to continue working in the minerals industry. What I'm trying to illustrate here is that, as some of you will know only too well, caring responsibilities are not the exclusive domain of women. The problem with flexibility. People need flexibility to be able to overcome some of the issues that arise due to caring responsibilities. There's a core tension here where some respondents were very critical of senior management's apparent inability to recognise that people have non-work priorities. This doesn't fit well with the view that companies shouldn't have to deal with non-work issues and the perception that Gen Y wants to have it all. This tension leads to an anxiety about flexibility. However, there are solutions. A commitment to flexibility doesn't need to mean that everyone gets every need met at the expense of the organisation. Commitment to flexibility means that requests to accommodate non-work priorities are considered fairly in the context of the needs of the organisation and the individual's value to the organisation. How to introduce and ensure flexibility in your organisation. Make a corporate commitment to flexibility and tell everyone what it is. Come up with some good, honest, credible case studies to illustrate how it works. Develop tools to report, measure and manage. This will help keep everyone honest and on the same page. A key outcome from this survey was that fathers want flexibility too, that there's a general lack of recognition of shared care. Corporate policy needs to recognise that flexibility is not a gender issue and proactively promote options to fathers also. Once again, it's about reporting, measuring and managing. So now to WIMNet itself. What do? We support people with networking events and professional development in a few locations around the country, and we're hoping to pilot a few events in remote areas next year. Visibility. What am I doing here today but increasing visibility of women in AusIMM activities? We also work with other organisations such as APESMA and Women on Boards. Research and advocacy. We collect and analyse data for advocacy in the public and private sectors. And of course we work with the industry for professional development opportunities and information and benchmarking. There are two main locations where successful networking opportunities occur during the year. The most successful is the WIMWA group in Perth with 1,000 members and bi-monthly industry-sponsored functions with up to 200 attendees and often a long wait list as well. There's also a very successful group based out of Brisbane where, although the numbers are smaller, there is no less enthusiasm by the attendees. These functions provide a valuable forum for women for networking and to work together to provide contacts for communication to share ideas, problems and solutions. WIMNet have also coordinated a number of successful professional development events in Perth and Brisbane. An important part of WIMNet's role is communication, so we work towards contributing positive outcomes to the AusIMM Bulletin and other media sources. We also have our own newsletter, WIMNet News, which Stephanie, who's in the audience, does a fantastic job of putting together. Finally, WIMNet has ongoing policy and advocacy initiatives in the area of benchmarking, lobbying the government and reducing the gender pay gap. Monica Sada, over there in red, is the manager for policy and advocacy for the AusIMM and has plenty of information about these initiatives for those that are interested. What's next for WIMNet? Well, we're looking for more members of either gender. We will continue to support women in mining associated work across Australia. We will work towards the sustainable development of the industry through increasing the equitable participation of women by support, research and advocacy. I've got a quote here from an unnamed CEO who I didn't get permission from, so I've just said it's anonymous. These women did not want to stand out as being different, and nor they should have had to. It was my behaviour that had to change. I really believe now that as a leader, you have an obligation to create a working environment that recognises and is inclusive of a diverse workforce. So anyway, any questions? I'll be around for the next couple of days and I'd love to talk to you. Thanks very much.